Hello there. As we all know, it is now the new year. At the beginning of the new year, people always say, I want to reinvent myself. I want to be a better person. I'm already devilishly handsome, fantastic at everything I do. I'm kind, generous, humble, just smart as... But this year is not about becoming my best self. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's becoming my worst self. And some might say, my most authentic self. There's nothing more authentic than mean and rude. And for me personally, there's nothing more that I would rather be in life than a true bottom feeder. You know, crawling in the dirt, wiggling around, getting dirty, eating shit like you do. Composting, as nature intended. Nothing suits that more than the truest version of myself. And in this case, that's being a worm, baby. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why would somebody like you want to be a worm? Well, first of all, I already look a bit like a worm. See this? This is a self-portrait. In fact, it was I on the red carpet instead of Miss Heidi Klum, answering interview questions. What brings us all up, besides the new year, becoming the new you, is the release of the new movie, Dune 2, starring Zendaya and this little gremlin. As Dune 2 comes out later this week, what I think about most of all is not the acting prowess of Miss Zendaya, Miss Coleman, if you will. Not the acting prowess of one Rebecca Ferguson, or even one Florence Pugh. Or again, little rat boy or that other rat boy that's in this one who thinks he's Elvis. No, the main star of the show, in my book, what Dune is all about, all 6 to 8 to 45 other books that you consider, is about one thing and one thing alone. Worms, baby. Now, unfortunately for me, I am not the supple, hairless being that is a worm. What I could do is form a second skin, a skin suit of sorts. Not exactly a fursuit because there's no fur on it. More like a flesh suit. More like the God Emperor himself. Now, my inspiration for this whole project is to just become as worm-like as possible. Really just been wiggling around underground, laying in the sun, not contributing to society, some might say. For this, I had a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of a mood board, if you will. I have various sorts of inspirations. Things that really tickle my fancy, tickle my little worm senses. My main inspiration for this, of course, is the God Emperor himself. I would say, for the most part, quite a handsome, strapping man. But in other cases, sadly, he looks like a penis. I myself do not want to look like a penis. Number one, because they're gross. Number two, because I'm already the perfect being. Why would I lower myself to those sorts of unfortunate circumstances? Besides the whole God Emperor penis debacle, as I do want this to be wearable and somewhat comfortable, I also want it to look like a giant sleeping bag. Now, I like these kinds of sleeping bags because they just look silly, look cozy. And what I crave above everything else is comfort, is luxury. That's what I think about dirt. I think of luxury and comfort. So, besides the whole mummy burrito situation, other things I want to look like are, of course, young Frodo Baggins. Specifically, after he was snatched up by that big old spider and just spun into a little cocoon and looked like a little pale mummy. So, Frodo mummy it is. Other things I want to look like. This man has got that look of just all face, nothing else going on. That's what I want to be in the worm. I want to be just a face inside of a body. Sort of like these guys over here. And again, might I point out, no penis. Not doing the penis thing. Clean as can be. Other things that I think would be good to bring a vibe to this whole situation is, of course, nothing better than a Dune knockoff itself. Star Wars, baby! Of course, I have my lightsaber. Does it light up? No, because like all things Disney makes, it's a cheap disappointment and it'll just crumble your hearts and leave you an empty shell of a human being. Back to George Lucas. I want this to look like one of the Hutts. Specifically, this really cunty looking one. I like her in Clone Wars. I don't remember what her name was. Cunty Hutt, as some might say. Other things to draw inspiration from. A main man Achilles here, specifically when he's looking absolutely fucking devastated. Wrapped in a little burrito blanket. Now, this guy right here. You think this kid's gonna grow up and think, wow, I'm glad my parents forced me into being a stock model for Halloween costumes. No, he probably won't. But this is a fantastic look. This will go down in history as one of the greatest outfits I have ever seen in my life. And this is what I want. I want pale worm body. I want a trailing tail. I want a hood. And I want my little face to be peeking out of there. So, you might be asking, what brings you to the decision to become a worm? Why worms? Why now? Well, the movie Dune Part 2 is coming out in a few days. Even better, I got my grubby little mitts on some early screening tickets for Dune 2. By me, I mean my friend bought it and I'm not paying her back. What are we going to wear to this esteemed event? I myself will be turning up to the movie in nothing more than my own worm skin suit. And of course, it has to be done with nothing but the utmost quality, integrity, care, detail, ambiance. This movie is currently going to be showing on February the 25th, a Sunday, the Lord's Day, at 7 p.m. It is currently Saturday the 24th at about 2:35. This means that we have approximately 30 hours to get this worm costume built, done, and in red carpet shape. You might be thinking, that's not enough time. You can't do that. You'd be right. I can't, but we're going with it anyway. Thankfully for me, I planned ahead a teeny tiny bit. I went to the thrift store, found myself a used king-size comforter. Does this comforter weigh about 25 pounds? Yes. We're gonna be strong. We're gonna bring along a full king-size comforter to a movie theater, wrap me up in it, and we're gonna watch a movie. Am I stalling because I don't want to get started, or do I just love hearing myself talk? Both of these things are true. But if I'm gonna impress anyone, it's gonna be Miss Coleman here. So I'm gonna get started on my worm costume, and we're gonna see where it goes from there. So I hope you enjoy. Bienvenue. Let's turn into a worm. All right, what we have here, big old blanket, needs to be brown. It is not currently brown. We're gonna try dyeing it. Also don't have brown dye. That is not an issue. We have every color but brown, which is how you make brown. So we're gonna roll with it. All right, gonna mix up some dye, put the blanket in here, let it marinate, get all juicy, take it out, see what it looks like. For this, I was just using a powdered fabric dye, and whenever you use this, you have to really mix it in well, otherwise it'll leave dye stains and splotches on your fabric, which it did do, but I was able to cover most of it up later. It's not horrible, right? All right, we're just gonna move on with it and try the whole thing. So my original plan was just rinse this off outside and then I would be able to throw it in the washing machine to get it really clean. But as it turns out, a king-size comforter is way too big to fit into standard washing machines. For the life of me, I could not get it inside this washing machine, so I had to haul it back outside. It weighed like 75 pounds, and then just wash it outside with the hose. But since it's too big for the laundry, it's also too big for the dryer, which at this point, it was like 6 p.m. and this thing needed to get dry. Fucking chair broke. So, new plan is to cut out what I need.
We will cut the bike down the middle.
Hopefully it doesn't all fall apart in the dryer, so we can actually start sewing something. Go team. Friend. Look at this old guy. Oh, little caterpillar. Oh, look at it! In the arms of the angel. After a brief Viking funeral, I was able to get the comforter cut in half so that each half could go in the dryer separately.
What? This is your solution?
Once those were in the dryer, I started working on pattern pieces for the whole outfit. So I drafted pattern pieces for the hood, the shoulder part of the body to get the width, and then for the arms themselves. The hood pattern was actually really helpful and based off a YouTube tutorial, but the other ones were a complete waste of time other than I was already wasting time waiting for the laundry to dry.
Penis, get ready. Penis. All right, Aaron, go. Penis!
Alright, this isn't related to the video at all, but look at my mushrooms. So for the most part, this is dry, and it looks like the edges didn't fray that badly. So we're in business, baby. After all that, we're finally getting started at 9 p.m. First things first, we had to detach the batting from the top of the blanket and then go back in and reattach that after pleating it down to get that, segmented worm look that we're going for. Followed by sewing up both sides of the blanket to keep all of those pleats down. This also includes ironing the entire blanket and tacking down the fabric every few inches with fabric glue to make sure that the wrinkles stay nice and even across the entire body. Dude, this shit looks good, okay? Since we pleated up so much of the fabric, there was a ton left over at the bottom that had to be cut off. Oh, I'm gonna be a worm! Ah! After that, I did the same thing for the rest of the fabric, basically going in, pleating down the wrinkles, and then before cutting these out, I basted down all of those pleats to make sure that they didn't move around while I was trying to cut them. That way, the lines would look as clean as possible and would be easy to hem later on. Good morning, my worms. Last night we were able to finish up most of the body for the worm and then also pretty much all of the hood. I didn't film a lot of the hood, but I was able to get this. Oh, hell yeah! It looks pretty good. So this is what the hood currently looks like, all put together. Pretty comfortable. I think it's a good size. All that we need to do left for the hood, bind up this opening, close this off. Gonna make the arms for the worm. Yeah, now we're gonna be a worm. I started the day off by gluing down and tacking down the rest of the worm body so that all those wrinkles would stay nice and crisp. And then went through and did the same detaching process to the other half of the comforter that we removed yesterday, basically to just pleat it down the same so that the arms would also have that segmented look. All right, we've run out of pins, so I'm just gonna go in and hand baste around the arm and then we can cut it out. After I got the pleats basted down, I was able to cut out the arm pieces for both sides. But here's where a little bit of trouble started to come in. You ever think, hey, this might not be a good idea, and you do it anyway, and then turns out it's a bad idea? You ever fly too close to the sun? You ever fly too close to the sun twice in a row within the span of 10 minutes? Well, that's exactly what I did here. I thought it was a good idea to sew through 6 extremely thick layers of fabric on a very old sewing machine, and wouldn't you know it, needles break.
Looks like half a chance of getting to the film.
Man down! We've now broken 2 needles. I only had 2 needles. Help! Since we were down a sewing machine, I had to finish off this arm by sewing the whole thing up by hand. Then later on, after scavenging through my little hoarder's pile, I found some needles that I thought could work for the sewing machine. Turns out they didn't. It's going to work! Alright, so got a new plan here. We currently have the sewing machine that is not working, not going to work. I have the hood at least done where it's attached in a circle, and I'm not going to attach it to the actual suit. The good news is I do have some bias tape that I can use to close up the hole, and then the hole for the hands. Also good news, got Girl Scout cookies. I have one arm done, the other arm I'm just going to stitch together. It doesn't really matter if it holds up. And then just attach those and we'll have cookies. So since there was no coming back from the sewing machine, I just had to keep plugging on and sew everything else by hand. This included the second arm, the hood, and then binding the hood and hand openings with bias tape. Now you might be wondering, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. You're right, it is. I was sitting there for such a long time just stitching away, my little butt was hurting on the ground. But I did get a lot of good TV time. Through this entire project, I was able to watch 4 full soccer games, a shit ton of YouTube, and rewatch all of Fleabag.
Really?
Yeah, it's good to dwell on the next life.
You really think there's a next life?
What do you believe? Worm food.
Oh, hell yeah! Alright, arms done, hood done. I'm thinking this is looking pretty good. So all that's left to do is sew on the arms to the body and then sew up the side, and then we're gonna be done. All right, it is currently 4:50. The movie starts at 7. That means we have less than 2 hours to get this done. But what we're gonna do instead is paint this because, you know, who doesn't love a little texturing? Is that a good use of time? Absolutely not. Is it gonna dry on time? Probably not. Am I gonna finish the rest of it? Potentially. But if this experience has taught me anything, it's that there are no consequences to your actions. Let's go. Oh, there we go. At this point, it was go time. I had about 10 minutes to get the paint on so that it could start drying while I assembled the rest of the piece. Now, as soon as I put the first splotch of paint on, I thought this was a big mistake. Mostly used it to cover up the dye spots that were left over from the dye bath earlier. Well, it looks like I blew myself.
Are you crazy?
Are you blue?
Only in color, Michael.
What the? Hold on. What the? You seeing this shit? You seeing this? What the hell? At this point, I was running on nothing but caffeine and willpower. Once the paint was on, I was just sewing as fast as I could. The sides do not look good, the arms are barely attached, but you know what? They're on there. And after spending this much time, I was not about to give up 10 minutes before the movie. I was gonna be a worm or I was gonna be nothing. With the costume finally finished about 30 seconds before I needed to head out the door, I was able to throw on the costume, get in the car, and head to my destiny. Hello there. So overall, I gotta say, I'm really happy with how this turned out. The paint job, it could have turned out better, surprisingly, with how much it does just look like a paint drop cloth. I think it did add a lot of texture and some battle damage, that sort of thing. And I feel like with a little bit more paint variation, it could have been really good. The paint, I mostly put it on places where there were already dye mistakes from the dye not being fully, mixed together. Blends it in a little bit more. Overall, I really liked how it turned out. I think it's so silly. I got a good laugh out of it. My friend got a good laugh out of it. Some of the people at the movie theater got a good laugh out of it. A lot of people just would not make eye contact, which I feel like that's even better. Even with how much extra allowance I gave for the fabric, this is still surprisingly quite tight, and so it isn't the most comfortable thing in the world. The last few bits were really thrown together, so there's a ton of open seams, the arms ripping open, side is all visible, but done without a sewing machine turned out way better than I expected it was going to. The little hands worked out great. I left a little pocket in the side so that I could wear a fanny pack and get my phone and my wallet in there, which it worked out great. It is just an open seam, but that's what we're working with. With all good cosplays, it's just being held together by hot glue and the will of God. It didn't fall apart while we were at the theater, so that's really what I was going for. I found the easiest way to get it on is to just crawl in through neck opening here. I even put a little snap button up here so that I could still get it on, but then close it so it wouldn't fall off. It was extremely warm. Oh my God, I was dripping sweat during the entire movie. Throughout the course of the movie, I just had to start scooting out of it more and more, getting about halfway through the neck hole because it was a 1,000 degrees in there. I took it off and it was like a sauna in there. It was good enough that I could sit and watch a movie. Having the option to take the hood off here made it so much more comfortable because it makes it easy to get in and out of. It pretty much just covers up all the seam. So overall, do I think this was worth about a solid 24 hours straight of construction, a lot of planning and a lot of stress? Yeah, I think so. And I had a fun time. This was great. I'm glad I got to be a worm for a day and I can have this for all further worm needs like you do. Oh, the only other thing, I went through and I folded all of the segment down. The pleats go tucked under, so it's kind of like shingles on a roof. While I was watching the movie, they got on the fucking sandworms. Ah, shit. I forgot that their little segments go the other way. So all of these are technically upside down. Fucked up on the arms, so the arms ended up being upside down, which then ended up being right side up. 10 out of 10 penis cosplay. Would recommend. Have a great day. As they say, one man's trash is another man's full-size worm penis cosplay. I'm gonna go drink about a gallon of water. Oh, also the movie was good. Okay, that's all. Bye. Hold on. It's so hot.
You look incredible.
Oh, thank you. This thing's like 1,000 degrees.